In this video, we're going to look at the useEffect hook. And the useEffect hook basically allows us to create side effects that run in a React component. Now, these side effects are often things like data fetching or manually updating the DOM. We're going to use it to calculate the average color of all of the colors that the user has selected. And we're also going to create one that's going to count the number of seconds the user has been on the site. This is just two good examples that we can use to create the useEffect hooks. So if I go back into the app, I need to first include it in what we're importing from React. So I'm going to type useEffect here. So now it is available. So inside of our app component, I use it by typing useEffect, and that's a function. And the first argument of that function is another function. It's a callback function. The second argument is going to be dependencies. We'll get to that in a second. So the first thing I want to set up is I want to set up the average color as a state. So we're going to use the useState hook that we used in a previous video. So I need to include that up here as well. So I'm going to create const average set average equals useState, and I'm going to initialize it with an initial value of our default color, which is 50% gray, green, 8, blue, 8. And just to keep it consistent with the structure of our data everywhere else, we're going to add a name. We may not use it, and it's going to say average color. So there we have a new state value of average and a update method of set average. So the second value of the second argument of the useEffect hook, is basically what it's looking for. So typically you would put in maybe an empty array. That basically means run only when the component is mounted and never again. But if I add something to this array, it's going to run this effect every single time the value in that array gets updated. So I'm going to pass the state because I want this useEffect to run every single time our state gets updated, which is our list of colors, because we need to recalculate the average color when that happens. So now this useEffect is going to fire every single time this state updates, and also when the component is first mounted to the DOM. So I'm going to do what we did before, and I'm going to create a copy of the state by typing state copy equals state.map. This is a simple arrow function, and in parentheses we're just returning what we get here, like this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually check if any state exists. And the reason we're going to do this is because the useEffect hook is going to fire as soon as the component is mounted to the page. When it's first mounted to the page, there's no list of colors. No one's added any colors yet. So we should not do anything because it's going to just be wasted time. So I'm going to say if state copy dot length. So our state is an array. It starts as an empty array with a length of 0. So this will only fire if the length is greater than 1. Equal to or greater than 1, which will happen as soon as the user adds a color. So I'm going to say let red equals 0, green equals 0, blue equals 0. So these are the placeholders for how we're going to calculate our average color. State copy, which is a copy of our state. I'm going to say for each, then I'm going to write color. So it works very similar to the map function. It's going to just go call this callback function every once for every single color in our state array. And I'm going to say red plus equals pass int color.red. I need one for each channel. Let's just do this quickly here. Oh, sorry. Green, blue. So what this is basically saying is loop through the state and add all of the red values together, add all of the green values together, and add all of the blue values together. So just underneath here, to get the average, we need to say red equals red divided by the length of the state. We just need to do that, obviously, for every channel. Green and blue to here. And now we're going to set average to be those values that we've just determined. So red. So we're actually going to use our math library, which is available in JavaScript, to round the numbers, because this number is not necessarily a integer. It could be a decimal point. We just want an integer, so I'm just going to type math.floor, which basically means take the decimal number and round it down to the nearest integer of red. So I'm just going to do that for all the channels. For blue, then we're going to say name average color. Here it is. So basically, we've created our useEffect hook. We've created a copy of the state inside of our useEffect hook. If there are any colors in the state, we're initializing a red, green, and blue value starting at 0. We're looping over the state. For every color, we're adding the value of red, green, and blue onto the respective channels. Then at the end, we're dividing that total number by the number of colors that there are, and we're setting the new average color to be that value. And we're firing this useEffect hook when the component is mounted, and also every time after that the state is updated. So we need to actually add a value to use this state in our project. So I'm going to go under here, under the color form, or inside of the color form, sorry. And I'm going to create a div, class name equals average color, style equals, we want background color to be RGB plus average dot red plus this plus average dot green plus average dot blue. Just like that, and we're also going to use the same logic that we have in our color form for the color of the text on top of it, because it seems to work well. Let's go here. Just copy that. Put it here. Let's change props to average. And inside of this component, I'm going to type average color red. We'll put in brackets the values just so that we can see them. Average.red, green, average.green, and blue for RGB. Average.blue. There we go. That should be about it. We've got our npm building here. Let's just start it again, just to be sure. To the browser, let's hit refresh. So we have our average color here. We've initialized it with the value of 128. I can see quickly that I've not closed the parentheses here. And then I'm just going to put a BR tag here just to give it a bit of space. Yeah, so we've created the average color as a state, and we've called 50% gray as our starting color because that's the defaults here. But if I add a color, it's going to calculate the, oh, what's happened here? We've got blue. Issue average dot blue, green, average dot green, average dot blue. Oh, I see. I've passed a string here instead of a proper value. If I go back, I add a color. There we go. So average color has updated to be this color because it's the only color that we have. But if I was to add another color that's blue, this color is going to be exactly in between on every single channel. And if I add another color that's red, or pink rather, it's going to update again. So as you can see that useEffect hook is being called every single time we add a new color, which is when the state updates. So the other useEffect hook that we were going to create is one that calculates the amount of time someone's been on the program. So let's do that now by doing a similar thing. We'll go const time set time equals use state 0. So you can have as many use effects as you want. We're going to have use effect callback function. We're going to pass a second argument of an empty array. There's going to be nothing that's going to require this timer to be set up again. So the reason why I'm going to show you this is because useEffect also has to have a cleanup. So we'll get to that in a second. I'm just going to quickly set a timer, which basically is going to be let user timer equal set interval. So we're going to call this function. We're going to do it every second by adding 1000 milliseconds to the second argument of the set interval function. And we're going to go set time of time plus plus. Just like that. So we have to actually do some cleanup as well. So what that means is we need to make sure that this interval is going to be cleared if it's no longer needed. So if we need to unsubscribe from something in the useEffect hook, we simply return it. So we return a function. So the function that's returned from this callback should reverse any of the ongoing effects of useEffect. So to do that, we're going to go clear interval user timer. Just like here. Sorry, that's use timer. It should be user timer. Oh. User timer. Yeah. And I'm going to actually go down and next to average color, I'm going to say user has spent time seconds on site. Let's put a pipe here. So let's go back to the project here. We're not getting any seconds here. Time is read only. Oh, I see. We need to create a copy of that. So we'll just go let time copy equal time copy plus plus. Let's go back here. So as you can see, it's counting the number of seconds that the user has been on the site and updating it here. And that useEffect hook had no dependencies, as we can see here. So that's two examples of using the useEffect hook. One has a dependency of the state, so it fires when the component is first mounted, and then every single time the state updates and sets the average color. The second one fires when the component is first mounted and only then, and it sets up a timer, which allows us to time the number of seconds the user has been on the site. And then we also perform a cleanup for when that is no longer needed and we get rid of that interval. In the next video, we're going to be looking at our very last hook, the useContext hook, and we're going to be adding a light and dark theme to the site.